Bom dia, gente. Primeiramente, eu quero agradecer a Deus. E eu quero agradecer a todos, a cada um de vocês que tiraram um tempinho para ir curtir minhas fotos, que me ajudaram motivando, me dando força todos os dias. Obrigada pelos patrocínios, por tudo, gente. Eu sou eternamente grata por vocês estarem contribuindo com um sonho meu. E hoje é o grande dia, o dia tão esperado. Eu me preparei bastante. E se Deus quiser, tudo vai dar certo, porque Deus sabe de tudo. E além de mim, a minha cidade merece também. Muito obrigada.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing super well. Welcome to today's video. Today, we're going to be talking about a case that happened in Brazil. This video is about 22-year-old Kimberly Mota and how she was stabbed and murdered by her 31-year-old boyfriend. I do just want to put a trigger warning because this case does involve domestic violence. I hope that Kimberly's story and her memory can touch the lives of others and just serve as a reminder to support those who have or are suffering domestic violence or going through controlling relationships. Love should never be controlling or manipulative. It should not cost you your well-being, and it's important to know the signs and seek help if a relationship ever escalates to something abusive. It's very crucial that awareness is spread with sensitivity since these cases involve real human lives that were ended. I will include some resources in the description box down below with hotlines and organizations that you guys can reach out to in case you or anyone you know is experiencing any of this. I will also be making a donation to those organizations on behalf of La Familia. These organizations are from Brazil, and I'm also going to put some organizations that are in the US since I know the majority of my audience lives in the US, so I definitely want to give you guys some resources as well. I also want to mention that a lot of these articles and a lot of the resources for this case were in Portuguese since this case took place in Brazil, so it was a lot to go through and to translate everything. So if something did get lost in translation, please let me know in the comments down below so I can update any information that was missed or any information that we may be said incorrectly. Please, of course, let me know in the comments down below so I can update it either in the description box or let you guys know through a pinned comment. If you guys ever want to do your own research or just, further dig into this case, I will leave all of my resources in the description box down below. Thank you guys so much for being here and for taking the time to listen to another video. You guys are literally the best familia ever. I know I state this in every single video, but you guys are just so amazing, so empathetic, and I just really appreciate how much you guys show up for this channel and how you help me spread awareness. So thank you. And with that, let's jump right in and let's talk about what happened to Kimberly. Kimberly Karen Mota was born on February 26, 1998 in the city of Manicoré in the state of Amazonas in Brazil. She had two younger brothers and she was very close to her mom, Neila. She was really close to her mom since she was the only girl in the family. Growing up, Kimberly was a natural in front of the camera. She dreamed of becoming a model, so she actually started doing pageants and, like small modeling jobs, and she was just doing whatever she could to get her name out there by doing paid promotions, by doing these small modeling gigs, and just, putting herself out there. She worked very hard to get her model walk down. She had all the right mannerisms. She worked really hard on her figure, and she just worked very hard on everything else that she needed to win these beauty competitions. She did end up winning some beauty titles, and she even became Miss Manicoré in 2019, and she also made it to the Miss Amazonas finalist, and she was actually planning on re-entering the following year. So she was on it, you guys. It's a lot of work to do these pageants and to just live that lifestyle. I have a cousin-in-law who does this, and she competes in Mexico, and she's always talking about how hard it is to maintain your figure, how hard it is to stay in it mentally, and just how much work goes into getting into these contests and also to finalize and win and stuff like that. So Kimberly was very dedicated to this, and it took a lot of time from her, but it's something that she just absolutely loved doing. Something that also made their bond so strong was that Neila was also a Miss Manicoré back in her days, so they bonded over their love for everything glitz and glamour, and Neila gave Kimberly all the support, all the tips, and was just there for her daughter. So it's really sweet that the two of them were able to bond over something like this. How cool that your mom was Miss Manicoré at one point and now you're following in her footsteps. It's just really beautiful. Kimberly just had very huge dreams, and she wanted her name to be known, and she hoped to be Miss Brazil one day. She loved loved going on runs and working out to stay in shape, which she would often share on her Instagram. She had an absolutely beautiful smile and she was very active on social media, so she would share a lot of her, behind the scenes stuff of her going to the pageants, of her working out, of her doing her makeup and just getting ready for these competitions. So just taking a look at her Instagram made me really emotional because you can just see how lively she was and she just looked so happy doing this, so full of life, and it just breaks my heart that her life was taken way too quickly. In 2019, Kimberly had to move away from her hometown where all of her family and friends were to another town called Manaus to attend university. She was going to study dentistry and, she was willing to make this sacrifice and move away from everyone and from everything she's ever known for the sake of building her future and for taking her studies very seriously. Yeah, she wanted to be Miss Brazil and she wanted to do all of this, but she also wanted to have another career. She also wanted to get her education. So, like I said, she was just balancing so much. Like, I don't know how she was doing this. Now, Kimberly's uncle Henry, who was her mom's brother, lived in Manaus and he also lived very close to the university she was attending. So Kimberly decided to move in with her uncle. She just felt very comfortable doing so because she really trusted her uncle. She got along with him so well and she was just really excited about this new, plan for her future. One night after class, Kimberly was out with her friends when she suddenly met 31-year-old Rafael Fernandez Rodrigues. Now, a little bit about Rafael. He moved to Manaus in 2017 and he moved there because he was going through a divorce and he also got a new job working as a judicial analyst. So this was a very good job that he had and he was making very good money. He was nearly 10 years older than Kimberly and as I mentioned, he was divorced. Now, that's kind of the gist of what we know about Rafael. There's really not that much information about him, about his family or about things like that. So we don't really know much about his personality outside of a relationship. It turns out though that Rafael already knew who Kimberly was because he was already following her on social media. As I mentioned earlier, Kimberly would often share pretty much everything about her life, about her beauty competitions, about her family, about her workouts, all of that on social media. So she did end up growing quite a following. So Rafael had somehow stumbled across her Instagram, so he knew of Kimberly, but she didn't know him. So they're at this club and Rafael goes up to Kimberly, tries talking to her. He asks her to go on the dance floor with him and he also offers to buy her some drinks, but she kind of just brushes him off and tells him, oh no, I'm here with my friends, I'm not looking for anything. So she basically rejected Rafael, but in a nice way. Now, something to note is that Raphael did not mention to Kimberly that he already knew who she was, that he already followed her on Instagram. He was kind of just acting as if she was a complete stranger and, not letting her know some important information. Because I feel it's important to let someone know, hey, I already know who you are. I follow you on Instagram. I know your name. I know stuff like that. And it's a little bit weird that he just acted like she was a complete stranger and how he didn't know her name, etc. So she tells Raphael no, that she's just here trying to hang out with her friends, but Raphael wasn't taking no for an answer. In the following days after this, he started messaging her on Instagram. He spammed her with a bunch of likes on her photos, and he sent her so many DMs on Instagram just asking her to meet up. Somehow, he eventually got a hold of her WhatsApp, and he started sending her messages on there until she finally responded. The two of them began talking through these messages, and at one point, they finally met in person to hang out. They continued talking, getting to know each other until March of 2020. This is when they began to formally date. When they first started dating, everything seemed to be going well, but eventually Kimberly told her friends that Raphael was not what she expected. She started to see his true colors and she said that he was extremely toxic, that he was just very jealous and just very possessive over her. He would check her phone, he would look through her photos, through her applications, through her contacts, text messages, everything, and he would constantly want to fight about who she was talking to, what type of photos she was taking, who was on her phone. It was just really, really out of control, and you definitely should not be going through someone's phone like that. It's just very invasive. There's really no reason why Raphael should have been doing that. It's not like she had cheated on him in the past or anything like that. At this point, they just started dating and they're barely getting to know each other, and he's already acting this controlling and obsessive. He even prohibited her from having any male friends and from posting certain things on social media. He would basically interrogate her on where she was, what she was was doing and who she was talking to whenever they weren't together. And, she just told her friends that he wanted total control over every aspect of her life. Again, they were barely dating for 2 months at this point, and the way he was acting was just not okay. It's not okay to act this way within 2 months of dating. It's not okay to act this way within 5 years of dating. I just don't think anyone should tell you what you can and can't post on social media, who you can talk to. It's just really, really sad that Kimberly was going through this very toxic and just controlling relationship. They were only dating for a few months, but Kimberly was like, this is crazy. Like, I've had enough of this. I don't want to deal with him anymore. And she actually told her friends that she wanted to break up with him. So she was in those last stages of the relationship, and she just knew that she would cut things off very soon. She just felt very suffocated and just very controlled, and she's only 22 years old at this point. She had such a bright future ahead of her with her career in, the dentist field, with her career in the beauty pageants and wanting to become Miss Brazil. There was just so many things going for her, and having someone control her and just like manipulate her was something that she just did not need and did not want. They would just constantly fight, and Raphael would try to make things up to her with gifts and flowers and, taking her to these expensive dinners, but, those were temporary fixes, and Kimberly knew deep down that their relationship just wasn't going to work, and that these dinners and gifts weren't enough. And it's not like, oh, I can be controlling and toxic, but I took you to an expensive dinner, so you have to forgive me. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that he thought that she would forgive him because of these gifts and dinners is really, really scary. It's very disturbing. And Kimberly was like, no, like, these gifts and stuff like that is not going to work on me. So now let's fast forward to Mother's Day, which was on Sunday, May 10th, 2020. Kimberly began her day kind of bummed because she wasn't able to go back home to visit her mom for Mother's Day, since she actually had to stay in Manaus to attend classes. So she was upset, because she obviously wanted to spend this beautiful day with her mom. So since she wasn't able to go there, she actually posted this photo on Instagram with her mom that read the caption, and quote, "There is no love like ours. No words can express the admiration I have for you. Thank you for always being by my side. I love you. Missing you hurts my heart." Which is just a very, very sweet message, and again just emphasizes the absolutely beautiful relationship that Kimberly and her mother had. So Kimberly makes this post on Instagram. She continues on with her morning, and she starts to get ready for a run that she's going to go on with her Uncle Henry, with her uncle's friends, and with her boyfriend Raphael. The group went for their run at a nearby park, and Kimberly's uncle says that everything looked normal between Kimberly and Raphael. It didn't seem like the two were angry at this point. It didn't seem like they were fighting or in a weird mood. He says that everything just looked completely normal. So they finished their morning run, and then Kimberly tells her uncle that she's going to go spend the day with one of her friends and that she'll update him on what time she'll be home throughout the day. Hours later, however, at around 10:30 p.m., Kimberly texted her uncle asking him to leave the front door unlocked for when she got home, because she was going to be getting home very late that night and she didn't want to disturb him and, wake him up to go open the door. So her uncle reads this message, he agrees to this, he leaves the door unlocked, and Kimberly tells him that Raphael would be dropping her off later that night, and that was that. Her uncle went to bed, and then the next morning, Henry woke up and realized that Kimberly never made it home, which according to him was very strange, since she told him, very surely that she would be home later that night, and again asked him to leave the door unlocked. So it's not like she was planning on spending the night with a friend or spending the night with Raphael. She made it clear to him that she was going to be home that night. With this information, her uncle just had a really bad gut feeling. Kimberly would always keep her mom and her uncle updated on her whereabouts, but they had no idea where she was or what had happened, so this was definitely not a good sign. He tried calling Kimberly, but received no answer. He also tried calling Raphael, but again received no answer. On top of that, Kimberly's friends contacted him and told him that they were not able to get in contact with Kimberly, and they were starting to get worried about what had happened. So with all of this, the fact that he's not able to get in contact with Kimberly, her friends are not able to get in contact with her, no one can get in contact with Raphael, this was just all very, very scary for him. So he decided to just get in his car and immediately drive over to Raphael's apartment to look for Kimberly and to also look for Raphael. He gets to the apartment and he starts knocking on the door, but again receives no answer. Since both Rafael and Kimberly were not answering their phones and they were also nowhere to be found, Henry believed that something bad had happened to the both of them. Not just to Kimberly, but to also Rafael. I mean, what could have possibly happened that two people just aren't picking up their phone and aren't answering the door? After leaving Rafael's apartment, he headed straight to the police station and he reported the two of them as missing. However, police really weren't that helpful. They were like, well, Kimberly's 22, Rafael's 31. They're both adults. There's really no reason why we should look for them and why this is like an urgent matter since they're both adults and they can basically do whatever they want. Police were honestly thinking that maybe the couple had gone on like a little getaway together. Maybe they just like snuck away and wanted some alone time. But Kimberly's uncle and the rest of the family were like, no, that is not what happened. Something is terribly wrong. Kimberly would just never leave her family dry like this. She would have notified them of, hey, I'm going to go on a little getaway with Rafael, or like, hey, like I'm going to be busy today. I'm going to be MIA, but like everything's okay. She would have told her family about what was happening. She wouldn't have just let them be this confused and this worried. Now, since police were not really too helpful, the family began sharing Kimberly and Rafael's photo all over social media, and they were just spreading the word on their disappearance in hopes that someone would come forward with any information about their whereabouts. Although they feared that the two were in danger, they were still holding on to hope that they would be found safe and sound. But unfortunately, on May 12th, a body was found. That morning at around 4:30 a.m., police forced their way into Rafael's apartment to look for clues. When they walked inside his bedroom, they found Kimberly's body. She was under a bed sheet, lying in a pool of blood on the ground, with multiple stab wounds to her neck and her abdomen. It was just an absolutely horrific scene. While police were looking around, they also located the murder weapon, which was a kitchen knife found on the balcony. There were bloody fingerprints left on the weapon, and there were also bloody footprints spread throughout the apartment. They also noticed that it was very cold inside the apartment because someone had left the air conditioner on, and police figured that maybe whoever did this had decided to leave the air on as a way to slow down her body's decomposition and also mask the smell. Despite finding Kimberly, there was no sign of Rafael. This is when people started to kind of change their perspective, because at first people thought that something had happened to both Rafael and Kimberly. However, after looking at this horrific crime scene and, putting two and two together, Rafael now was the #1 suspect in Kimberly's murder. His photo was all over social media now, and police were telling the public to keep an eye out for this man because he was considered dangerous. Police knew that they had to act fast to find him before he had the chance to flee to another country. Kimberly's friends told police that she was thinking of ending the relationship, so maybe that night she tried to end the relationship, and that is what caused Rafael to do this horrible thing. And honestly, that was like a very real possibility, and to police, this was basically the only explanation as to why Rafael would have done this. The next day, on May 13th, police located Rafael's car in Caracaraí, which was around 600 kilometers from Manaus. According to highway cameras, Rafael was driving so fast because, at this point, it seemed like this is when he left his apartment and was like fleeing the crime scene. So he was driving so fast that as he was turning a curve, he actually crashed and flipped the car onto its side, which is just crazy. So with the surveillance footage of the crash, police were thinking, okay, like after he crashed, he obviously couldn't continue driving away to flee, so he probably had to walk somewhere. Maybe he called a taxi, maybe he like hitchhiked. He had some type of transportation to flee the crime scene. So they started digging into this theory, and that's when they discovered that after the crash, Rafael called a taxi, took a ride to the bank, and then withdrew some cash. After this, he went to Boa Vista, which is a city near the border of Venezuela, to take out even more cash. So now the police were thinking that he was going to try to flee Brazil and go hide in Venezuela. They head over to the border, they speak to authorities, and they were right. He did try to cross the border, but thankfully he was denied entry by the authorities. His attempt to enter was actually recorded thanks to a health checkpoint created due to the pandemic, so that's actually how he was caught. After he was denied entry into Venezuela, Rafael fled into the forest. So now police were focused on finding him and, bringing him back to Brazil. And in the meantime, on May 14th, video surveillance footage was released from the night of the murder. In one video, Kimberly is seen being picked up by Rafael in his white Audi, and in another video, the two of them are seen going up to Rafael's apartment at around 11 p.m. They were also seen in the elevator, and to authorities, they looked normal. It didn't appear as if they were fighting, as if they were mad, nothing like that. So the two of them were seen going up to the elevator to Rafael's apartment, and then at around 1:30 in the morning, Rafael is seen leaving the apartment complex completely alone, with no sign of Kimberly ever coming out. As Rafael is leaving his apartment completely alone, he looks calm and very collected. There's no sign of distress, there's no sign of shame or of guilt or of anything indicating that he had just done something terrible in his apartment. When people saw the surveillance footage, they were shocked that, Rafael could look so calm after committing something so brutal, because he's literally leaving the apartment knowing that he just left his girlfriend's body up there, that he just did a terrible, terrible thing to this beautiful human, and it's just very eerie to see him acting so normal. Now, going back to the search for Rafael, on May 15th, police received a tip about where he was hiding. So they go to this location and they actually do find Rafael hiding in this makeshift hut in the forest. It's really, really crazy. This guy was ready to just live here forever. Maybe he was just waiting until the investigation died down, but it's just crazy that he was just living in this random hut in the forest. And before police could actually arrest him, they were attacked by 6 people who Rafael hired to be his private security. Yeah, Rafael hired these random men to protect him, and police actually got into a machete battle with these guys. Rafael paid them a pretty penny to do so they were taking their job of being a security very seriously, even though they had never even met him, and even though they were literally going up against police. These guys just didn't care. They were willing to do whatever to protect Rafael. Eventually, police were able to get through these 6 men because police told them that this was a very serious situation, that they were protecting a murder, and again, that Rafael is the #1 suspect in the murder of a young woman. So these guys that Rafael hired said that they had no idea that Rafael was being accused of this, so they were like, yes, please come take him away, we don't want to protect him anymore. So finally, Rafael was arrested and taken into custody for the murder of Kimberly. It turns out that also 2 of the people that he hired, a 24-year-old and a 17-year-old, were arrested as well for helping to hide him. After his arrest, Rafael confessed and told police everything that happened the night of the murder. Again, I do just want to put a trigger warning because this is very hard to process and very difficult to listen to. So, Rafael says that night he picked Kimberly up at her friend's house and they both went to his apartment. When they were at his apartment, he claims that they were having a good time, that they were just having, a normal night. After some time, however, Kimberly decided to hop in the shower real quick, and this is when Rafael decided to go through her phone since she had just left it in the bedroom. He began snooping through everything, going through all of her applications, through her notifications, messages, contacts, everything, and this is when he claims that he saw something that he did not like. Messages from men. This just made him extremely heated, very, very angry, and he says that he didn't want her to have any male friends or to talk to any men, so seeing these messages just kind of started to make him spiral. He says that he needed to confront Kimberly on what he found, but before doing so, he decided to walk over to his kitchen, and he said that he chose the biggest knife, hid it in his pants waistband, and then waited for Kimberly to come out of the shower so that he could confront her. Kimberly finished showering, she comes out, she lays on the bed next to Rafael, and that's when he began to immediately question her about what he saw on her phone. And according to Rafael, Kimberly, quote, lied straight to my face and said that she didn't have any relationship with any of those men and that they were just messages that she was being sent, but that she wasn't paying attention to these messages and she wasn't responding to them. So he's saying that Kimberly straight up lied to his face, and because of her lying, he exploded. He quickly reached for the knife that was in his pants and he began stabbing her in the neck and in the abdomen, which unfortunately led to her death. Thinking about this and just talking about it is so frightening. Kimberly must have been so caught off guard. I mean, one minute she's lying down next to someone that she loves, next to her boyfriend, and then all of a sudden he just begins to aggressively question her, and before she even got the chance to process what was happening, he just began to stab her. It's all such a big nightmare. I mean, doing all of that over some text messages is so disturbing. It's so scary. I mean, there's no reason why he should have done this. There's literally nothing that she could have done, no messages, no conversations, nothing that would warrant this type of reaction. It's really sad because, again, like, this is someone that he claims that he loved so much, yet he did this horrible thing to her and then just left her body there underneath a bed sheet and just left her there as if she was nothing, didn't call for help, didn't call anyone. It's all just truly disturbing. So moving over to Raphael's trial, it was actually delayed due to the pandemic, and because his defense was arguing that he had a mental disorder, and because of this mental disorder, he was not fit to stand trial. Due to those statements, he had to undergo a handful of tests. In the end, it was determined that he was fit to stand trial. So finally, on October 27th, 2021, it began. There were a total of 9 witnesses that were going to be brought up during the trial. 5 were from the prosecution side, and 4 were from Raphael's defense team. Along with witnesses, there was also a lot of DNA evidence to go through and video surveillance evidence presented. Through all of this, investigators discovered the actual timeline of what Raphael did after he murdered Kimberly. Right after he murdered her, he did try to move her body and, get rid of her and like hide her, but he panicked and he was really nervous when he realized that there was blood getting everywhere and that her body was also really heavy. So he says that he couldn't just think straight, so he actually called his father, 60-year-old Nilton Rodrigues, and told his father what he had just done. His father listened to this horrible phone call and told his son that he needed to go turn himself in immediately. But Rafael told him that he couldn't do that, and instead, he decided to flee. So he left his apartment, and on his way to wherever he was trying to flee to, he threw Kimberly's cell phone into the forest, and then he headed to the Venezuela border. On his way, however, he crashed. He flipped his car over in Caracaraí, as I mentioned earlier. He then hitchhiked to Boa Vista. He took a taxi to the bank to withdraw some cash, and as we already know, he was denied entry at the Venezuela border, so he fled to the forest to hide, and then hired those men to be his security. Raphael said that he did all of this out of a moment of anger where he just wasn't thinking right. He said he didn't do it because of simple jealousy, but because Kimberly lied straight to his face about something that he already knew the truth about. However, again, this is just his perspective. Like, we have no idea if he's telling the truth. We have no idea if Kimberly did lie about anything or if there was even anything to lie about. This is just what he is saying happened and why he is saying that he exploded and did this horrific thing. A lot of people question what he's saying. A lot of people don't believe that this is actually what happened. That the truth is that Kimberly did try to break up with him that night. He didn't want her to break up with him. He reacted violently to this, and that it was basically a situation of, if I can't have you, no one can. On October 28th, 2021, Raphael was sentenced to only 14 years in prison. 14 years. How, you guys? I don't get it. I don't get it. And I've covered a couple of cases from Brazil before, so I know that the law there is not the greatest and that the sentencing for criminals is really, I would say it's very flimsy, it's very lenient. So the fact that he only got 14 years for doing this is so sad. It's so disappointing, you guys. Like, how is Kimberly's life only worth 14 years? The same day that his sentence was read, Kimberly's mom actually passed away due to leukemia. Just gets sadder and sadder. Throughout the whole trial, she was dealing with cancer, she was dealing with these treatments, and the fact that she passed away the day that her daughter's killer was sentenced it's just really crazy. It's really sad as well because, a lot of people say that KiIled just fought hard enough and, was strong enough to withstand until she could see that her daughter was getting justice. And then as soon as the sentencing was read, her body just let go and she passed away. She was attending the trials via video chat since she was in the hospital, and it was confirmed that hours later she passed away. I just can't imagine the pain that Kimberly's 2 younger brothers must be going through, to first lose your sister to murder and then to lose your mom to cancer on the day that your sister's killer was sentenced. It's so incredibly sad, and I just truly hope that they are receiving the help that they need and that they do find the strength to keep going. Something else really sad about this whole situation is that Raphael's father died the day Raphael was initially arrested in 2020. Now, most of the articles articles and most of the reporters state that he ended his life by throwing himself onto train tracks because he was so ashamed and heartbroken about what his son did. However, Raphael's mom, Fatima, spoke out about this, and she said, quote, "It wasn't suicide. His father had very high blood pressure and was very nervous. With this news, he was going to Manaus, and I believe he fell ill near the platform when the train was close." She is saying that this was just like an accident, that his blood pressure just like went down, he accidentally fell onto the tracks, but a lot of people do believe that he took his own life because of what his son did and because this was just all too much for him to take in, which is really, really sad. It's so heartbreaking. I mean, Raphael just ruined so many people's lives, and if his father did take his own life because of this, that's just even worse. You know, his dad did the right thing. You know, he told his son to turn himself in, so it's not like he was trying to help Raphael cover up his crime. It wasn't like he was trying to help his son get through this. You know, he knew that what his son did was wrong, and it just must have broken his heart to learn that his son, you know, this man that he raised, was capable of doing something so brutal and so evil. It's just really, really sad that he passed away. Now, Fatima has also spoken out about what her son did, and she said, quote, "I will never judge or massacre my son because they are already doing that. He started to pay for the mistake that he made. He is my only son. He didn't drink, smoke, or use drugs, but he had an overwhelming love and became blind." End quote. Which, I mean, what? Like, that statement alone is just crazy. Like, the fact that she's saying that he had such an overwhelming love, like, he was just blinded by love. That's no excuse. That's not a reason as to why he stabbed his girlfriend in such a brutal way. On top of that, she's kind of like making it seem like it was a reaction that he had in the heat of the moment, but he went to the kitchen to grab that knife and he hid that knife in his pants. Why would you do that? Like, a normal person doesn't do something like that. So, I don't know, I just find it really crazy that she's saying this. And she also was saying that Raphael was a very calm and studious guy who everyone liked, and that he was never a jealous person, that there was never any controlling or jealous behavior in his past relationship, that he was a good person, that she witnessed the relationship, and that she never saw him lay a hand on a woman or anything. Now, I understand wanting to believe that your son is a good person and that it's incredibly hard to accept that they're not. But I also find it very insensitive to say that your son was a good person who everyone liked and that he was just blinded by love. I feel like that's a very rude thing to say for Kimberly's family. Like, Kimberly's family should not have to hear that because in their eyes and in reality, he was not a good guy. He was toxic, he was controlling, and he did brutally stab someone to death. So, I don't know, I just find it very shocking that the mom was saying that. On top of that, during the trial, one of Raphael's ex-partners said that their relationship ended because of how jealous and possessive he was. So, it seems like Fatima really didn't know how toxic her son was or how he actually was in a relationship. As to where Fatima is now, as of 2019, she has been battling with breast cancer, and she says that facing both her sickness and her son being in jail, it's just been really hard on her. She said, quote, "Imagine the hardship of enduring this without support from other relatives. I am the mother of the man who did this, and I will never judge him because there are already many people condemning him. I will remain supportive. A mother is a mother." End quote. And again, I don't want to be too harsh on her because I'm also empathetic to her situation. She does have breast cancer. She lost her husband, you know, the father of her child, and her son is in jail. And it seems like this is her only child. So it's hard not to judge her and to not be upset with these type of comments that she makes. But again, he stabbed his girlfriend and did something so brutal. So it's just really, really hard to like feel sorry for him. It's also really sad that she's going through breast cancer. I do hope that she is getting the treatment and the help that she needs. And I wasn't able to find an updated report as of now in 2024 of how Fatima is doing. I hope that she is doing better and that she is getting through this. Now, going back to Raphael, his sentence was actually reduced in 2023 by 8 months. Yeah, it's disgusting. Like, I still cannot believe that he only got 14 years for stabbing and murdering someone. Now, Raphael's defense filed an appeal where they pointed out an error in calculating his sentencing, and the judge accepted it. So his sentence was reduced, which infuriated a lot of people. It just made people feel like Kimberly got even less justice, like less respect, and it just made people feel like Kimberly's case just wasn't wasn't really taken seriously, and again, to a lot of people, it just seemed like she truly didn't get justice. Now, Kimberly's body was flown to her hometown in Manicoré in a small plane with her family, and she was laid to rest there on May 13th, 2020. There were around 200 people in attendance paying their respects and giving their condolences to the family. People followed her coffin to the burial site, and it was just a really, really heavy day for everyone. Kimberly had these big dreams, and she had a whole life she was working towards. She was working really hard towards these goals as well, and all of it just ended in the blink of an eye because of a man that thought that if he couldn't have her, then no one could. It makes me so furious. It makes everyone so furious because how dare he take her light away? How dare he close her eyes like that? It's, my God, I'm not going to get into a little rant about it. It's just, it makes me really angry. I hope Kimberly is resting in peace and that she, is reunited with her mother in heaven. People on social media referred to Kimberly and her mom as now being two stars shining in the sky. My heart goes out to their family, to her brothers, to her Uncle Henry, to everyone that was affected by this. Kimberly was an absolutely beautiful girl. She just deserved so much more. She had a loving family, amazing friends, and such a bright future ahead of her. So it's sad that all of her goals of trying to become Miss Brazil and trying to, become a dentist and things like that was all just taken away. And what happened to her is incredibly scary. What Kimberly and Raphael had was not true love. He shouldn't have been so controlling and toxic. I mean, no one should, man or woman. It's just not healthy, and it's just very important to look out for these red flags and spot these very serious signs of abuse. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I will include some resources in the description box down below for domestic violence hotlines and organizations in case you or anyone you know is experiencing DV or controlling and toxic relationship. I am sending you all a giant virtual hug, and thank you again so much for being here and for taking the time to listen to what happened to Kimberly. Please stay safe out there, everyone, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, everyone.